Good morning. It's dark o'clock. I've toned the shirt down slightly, so that can only mean one thing. It's time to drive to the office, and it's time for a half-decent range test of this Audi E-Tron 55. So I must say this is a fairly welcoming place to be. If you've got to go anywhere, it's stupid o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's very dark. It's 6 o'clock. It's not any earlier than that. I couldn't manage. I was hoping for 5:30, but here we are. Got outside temperature of 9 degrees this morning. It's just gone down to 8.5. I had preconditioned the cabin using the app, but not that it's particularly recognisable. So the climate control is set to 20 degrees. It's still a touch chilly in here this morning. I don't know if I maybe set the timer for a little bit too early. Obviously I was planning at leaving about 5:30 and it's, like I say, closer to 6 o'clock. Maybe if I'd set it for 1:45 or something like that, it'd have been a fair medium and would be a little bit warmer in here, but it's warming up almost immediately now that I turned the car on and I'm driving, so it's not too bad. But I was hoping to step into something that was nice and, or at least warmer than outside. That doesn't seem to have been the case. So whether it didn't work or not, it said in the app it was preconditioning, but I don't know. Fairly familiar route if you watched the MG winter range test video. So I'm driving from Gloucester to Welwyn Garden City. 110 miles door to door, and that is using the A40, the M40, the M25. Lovely route, especially when there's traffic or something goes wrong, but it seems like the better option than heading down to the M4 and going that way, because you're on the M25 for even longer if you do that. So hopefully it won't be too cruel to me today. And what we're going to do is, this video is going to look at the whole 220 mile round trip. I've got 194 miles on the guessometer at the moment. Battery charged to just over 80%, and not through choice trying to conserve the battery or anything like that, just because I'm trying to only charge it at public charges where possible and not bothering plugging it in at home. Obviously with a full charge this would at least claim to be capable of going the distance and doing the round trip. Whether that would be true or not, I'm not particularly sure, but I've got plentiful charging at work anyway, so I'm not too worried about whether or not I've got enough range. So really this is more a test of efficiency. It's not an out and out range test. I'm not going to try and do the journey on one charge, because at least the way the car's charged at the moment, that wouldn't be possible. But it's a test of efficiency, so let's see what it's actually like. And when I say it's a test of efficiency, I don't mean I'm going to drive particularly efficiently. I'm going to stick to the speed limits wherever I go, of course, officer, if you're watching this video. I'm not going to crawl along doing 60 like I did in the winter range test of the MG ZS. We've got temperatures at 8 degrees. It's not warm, but it's not freezing cold either. I suspect that'll rise towards 14, 15 according to the weather forecast as I get close to the destination. So I'm not too concerned that I need to crawl along and preserve range. What I might do is do a future test where I do try and do that and try and drive as efficiently as possible. But today, I'm basically going to drive it like it was an internal combustion engine car, which means not really trying to drive slowly, trying to conserve energy too much. Obviously make use of regen and not drive stupidly, not go the full Audi and drive up the ass of everybody in front of me and all that, but drive fairly conservatively, but not deliberately driving slowly is the aim of today. The early bit of this footage is going to be a bit shonky lighting wise, so see it's dark outside and it's very difficult to light up the inside of your car to film, so you'll need to bear with the footage to start with, but it should get better as the sun comes up. And what I'm hoping this video will achieve is a decent sort of actual real world test of efficiency of the E-Tron. Obviously external temperature dependent. Everybody's driving's different. I'm sure there's some people that will tell me they could get 5 miles per kilowatt hour out of this. Maybe if you let it run downhill, not turn on. So we're 35 miles in now, 45 minutes on the A40 at the moment. The sun's starting to come up, so the lighting conditions are improving a little bit. You might actually be able to see me in the footage, which is nice. Well, maybe not for you, but showing a efficiency of 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour so far over that first 35 miles. See, I find with this car that because it does like a per journey efficiency readout. I guess the ZSEV did the same thing, shows you the current journey, and it seems a little bit slow to start showing efficiency readings that are actually sort of palatable. It was showing 1 point something for quite a while, 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour now, and I fully expect that to increase a little bit as time goes on as well. It seems, and I might be wrong, but it seems if you're going to use this car for very short journeys that you're going to be disappointed with its efficiency. I'm not quite sure why that is. Don't know if it's the energy that goes into sort of heating the cabin and stuff, or if it's genuinely not that great. It's sort of round town stop start stuff. But then it's where EVs are in their element, so I would find it quite difficult to believe. I guess it does take a fair bit of momentum to get this big old bus moving down the road, though. So far, not much to report really. I think it's quite difficult to quantify the level of comfort and refinement that you got in here. It certainly makes journeys like this feel a lot less taxing. So we're only just under an hour in, but the last time I had to come to the office, I had used a very different car, a 2017 Dacia Duster in the sort of Access base model trim with absolutely nothing in it, and absolutely no real refinement in it either. But then you wouldn't expect it, because brand new it was just over sort of 10% of what this car costs. So it's a very, very unfair comparison, but the difference in sort of refinement and sort of how fatigued and stuff I feel already it is huge. I feel much, much fresher already. I've only been in the car for an hour. I'm sure by the time I get there, it's going to be like night and day. And I think just not getting bombarded with as much noise everywhere. Now, see, there's a fair bit of road noise. It's not completely... There's definitely still a bit of tyre noise and stuff like that, but the overall road noise, the sort of noise from other traffic, you're definitely a bit more insulated from. I think I said that in the previous video as well. And it's always very difficult to convey comfort, because you're not going to experience that until you come and drive one. But you definitely see where the money goes. And I think, whilst as difficult as it might be to justify purchasing or renting or leasing or whatever a car like this, you definitely see where the money goes when you actually start using one for any length of time. I don't think I can deny that. Do I think it's worth the money? That's a much more difficult question. It's one I'd look to answer as I bring you more and more of these videos with this car by the time that I've got it. But do you see the benefit and where the money actually goes? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely you do. And I can tell you that already. So I've covered about 510 miles in this car since I got it. And definitely yes. So the answer is you can see exactly where the increased purchase price goes. I'm showing 135 miles on the guessometer now, so it's quite a sharp drop from where we started. Although I don't know if you know the area, you'll know Birdlip Hill, a very, very steep hill with a 60 mile an hour speed limit, and this pulled up at 60 miles an hour absolutely effortlessly. It's a very good performance test of a lot of cars. And even EVs, so my Kangoo van doesn't like it at all, because it's obviously not the fastest vehicle in the world. But most EVs, they have the power and torque that they don't even think about it. And this was like properly effortless. You barely even notice you're going uphill. You can maintain a constant speed and pass everybody that's in the left-hand lane that isn't able to, or is really struggling to keep going. I mean, when I did it in the Duster, I had to use fourth gear, and even then it was struggling, right? So I had to drop to fourth, and even then it was struggling. Cars like this just pull up at no bother, and that can probably be said for even the cheapest EVs. The MG was absolutely fine with it too. But what I did notice is a marked drop in the range readout on the guessometer from when I was at the bottom of the hill, where it was showing around sort of 190 miles, to the top where it was showing about 160. You're only talking about a mile or two, and it lost 30 miles off the guessometer just in those conditions, because I'm guessing it obviously, like most of them, it tries to predict what your range is going to be, and a long sharp incline like that, it's going to be like, well, if you keep driving like this, I'm going to run out of power a lot quicker than you think. But it seems to have taken an awful long time for it then to even out again. It went down to sort of 140 miles by the time I was at the top of the hill, and we must be 35 miles from there now, and it's only at 134 miles. So it's obviously recovering now that I'm on the flat. But very, very interesting to see how the guessometer can change very sharply if you're driving in sort of different terrain, massively different terrain. And I think some people get a bit freaked out by that. Their range reading drops sharply and they're like, oh no, what's going on? The BMW i3 I find particularly bad for that. It jumps around a lot, and it can be quite bad for inducing range anxiety through showing you a number that you weren't expecting. Especially the 60 amp hour i3 like we've got, which has quite a short range anyway, and if it then suddenly drops 10 miles off the readout when it was showing 60, and 60 becomes 50 very very quickly, that can be a little bit nerve-wracking. But I think the reality is you need to have an understanding of how efficient your car is and base range prediction off of that rather than solely relying on the gauge. One thing I've noticed as well, driving all the dark roads, so I don't think this car has the super mega matrix LED headlights, the ones that all the press cars had, all the reviews. If you watch any of the reviewers, the big YouTube reviewers of an E-Tron, the press cars all had the matrix LEDs, which will paint the Audi logo on the wall for you and all that kind of stuff. I don't quite know why it does that, but I don't think this one has that. I think it has a lower spec set of headlights than that. But what it does do, and which is very clever, is it has auto main beam. But unlike the MG ZS EV, for example, or other cars with auto main beam, I'm not picking on the MG, it's just the vehicle I've got experience of, it doesn't just turn the main beam on and off. It has segments in the lights, so it can light up just what's immediately in front of you, and it can leave the other lane alone by turning off the main beam on the other headlight, or it can just light up the verge on your side of the road and it can leave everything else on dip beam. And it's really really clever, and it can detect oncoming traffic, it can detect there being a car in front of you even coming up in the distance, and it can dip you partially or fully as it requires. And I think it's really really cool. What I don't know, and it's very difficult to show you it in action, I don't have a front facing camera today, and it's very difficult to show you in action anyway. I think even if I had a GoPro stuck on the bonnet or something like that, it would be hard because in low light conditions it'd be difficult to see. What I don't know is how good it is when you've got a car in front of you, because I could see it. It's lighting up bits of the road, not immediately where the guy in front of me is, but I don't know how much he would be able to see in his mirrors, and I don't know if you'll get to the sort of situation where the guy in front of you is like, oh, I wish that Audi wanker would dip his headlights because it's so bright in my mirrors. I don't know, but it seems like a really good system, but whether it inconveniences other drivers, I'm not sure. What I know it does do is dip for oncoming traffic far faster and far more effectively than the one in the MG did, which I thought was utter crap, and I turned it off. I never ever used the auto high beam because every time it was turned on, it just seemed to be hell-bent on blinding people. So that is the first leg of the journey done. Just arrived, 2 hours and 46 minutes. An average of 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour for the 113 miles that we travelled, a slight detour off the M25 because of the traffic. Average speed only 41 miles per hour, but then the M25 and the M40 and the M25 were their usual selves. So traffic-wise, whilst I was maintaining 70 mile an hour where I could and where it was safe to do so, obviously you inevitably get slowed down. But that's the first leg of the journey in. 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour, I think that's pretty good. Considering it was 8 degrees, it's 11 degrees now, so it's a lot colder than it was the other day when I was making a similar sort of longer journey. We've got 66 miles remaining on the gasometer, so that would put us in the region of 170, 175 miles to empty from where we started this morning, which was not a full charge. Remember, it was only about 83%, something like that. Thankfully, as I said, I can charge at work. 7 kilowatt post here I can plug into. There are some 22s somewhere, which would obviously charge me a little bit quicker, but we'll plug in here and let it do its thing this morning. So it's the next day, and it is time for the homeward journey at last. I've managed to charge to 100%. I managed to leave the car on a charger overnight at the office. I was staying in a hotel not that far away, so just left the car here and I managed to get charged to 100%. Didn't need to, but I thought I might as well. It wasn't inconveniencing anyone sitting outside in an empty office all night, so it's all good. Definitely notice when you got the big battery and the pretty inefficient car, charging time becomes a little bit more of a concern. I've never ever really worried about charging time. A lot of people talk about it. Oh, how long does that take to charge? You don't really, it charges overnight when I'm sleeping, so I don't really think about it, right? If you charge at home or you charge it on a rapid, it doesn't take very long. But a 7 kilowatt pod point destination charger, The app was only reporting it was delivering 6 kilowatts, which is a bit weird, and I'm not quite sure why that is. Maybe there's an issue with it. And it was reporting charge times of like 11 hours when I plugged it in when I arrived yesterday. 11 hours to charge from where I arrived at, which is about sort of 25%, I think we were at, to 100%, 11 hours. And it's like, that is just crazy. Now, thankfully, there are a couple of 22 kilowatt posts on site too. Now, this car, I don't think has the 22 kilowatt charging option, but it will charge at 11 on a 22 kilowatt charger, but as standard it has the 11 kilowatt 3-phase onboard charger. So in future I'll probably use one of those. Now, sitting on the 7 kilowatt charger whilst during the working day, I would have actually managed to get enough charge to get home. It would have been fine. As you'll remember, when I arrived, I still had 60 odd miles of range anyway, right? So to add enough to make the 110 mile journey home would have been absolutely fine. A little bit limited in that we're only supposed to use the chargers either AM or PM at work, so morning or afternoon. At the moment, the office isn't very busy. There's only certain people here certain days of the week, so they're not too bothered about that. I think if everybody was back and things were as normal, you'd need to think about that. And that's, for me, I think where I definitely would need to use the 22 kilowatt chargers to make sure we had enough juice to get home. But certainly it wasn't a concern apart from that. And of course, I've always got the option of stopping at a rapid, especially with the On2 charging cards. There's an Ionity at Beaconsfield Services, which my card will let me use, providing it's not on free vend anymore. It was on free vend for ages. Hopefully it's a little bit quieter now, because they've, as far as I know, they've started charging for it. But I'd be able to use that, and that would be fine. But anyway, let's get going, shall we, and see if we can better that 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour that we had on the way here. I'm not exactly holding my breath, because I'm quite keen to get home. 14.5 degrees, so a little bit warmer. Hopefully that gives us a fighting chance. Well, I made it home, 117.6 miles that time. So I guess I ignored the sat-nav suggestion to leave the A1M a little bit earlier and take some of the weird roads towards St Albans and then back towards the M25. So it always makes it a little bit longer, but much freer flowing. So I don't tend to take its suggestions. So I'm always just a little bit longer on the way home. But again, 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour. So a little bit short on the old efficiency and range front, definitely, I think. But again, that was driving to the speed limit, 70 mile an hour everywhere and 60 mile an hour on the A roads. No real concern for economy or efficiency. I guess it's what you get, you know. If I took it a bit easier, it'd probably be okay. So 92 miles left on the gasometer. So at that rate, it wouldn't do the whole journey. So there and back without a quick stop to top up at a rapid. So I don't know. Am I disappointed with that? Well, I don't think I am. I mean, it's such a nice place to be, and it's such a great way to if you're gonna spend hours on the road commuting, right? If you're gonna have a daft commute that takes hours and spend a lot of time in your car, you want to be in comfort and you want to be in luxury, and this definitely ticks all of those boxes. So you definitely forego the efficiency. But I was kind of thinking about this, right? And people obviously say, oh, the E-Tron is really inefficient, and it is. But I don't think it ever set out to be efficient. And if you look at the sort of miles per gallon equivalent, and I don't mean scientifically, I mean sort of emotionally. So something like a Hyundai Ioniq, they call it the wind knife. It's often said to be one of the most efficient EVs you can buy. It's so aerodynamic, it's brilliant, it's great. So if we said that does the equivalent of 100 miles per gallon, because that would be like so efficient. If you had a diesel engine that could do 100 miles per gallon, right, it would be the most efficient thing you've ever seen. So let's say that that's what the Ioniq is. And let's say that this is at the opposite end of the spectrum. So say that this is 20 miles per gallon. Well, that would probably be, or 25 miles per gallon, right? That would probably be in line with an Audi Q7 with a big thumping petrol or diesel engine with the same kind of performance that you get from this. So is it really out of touch efficiency-wise? I'm not sure it is. Is it great if range is a massive concern for you and you're not willing to charge en route and those kind of things? Maybe not. But maybe the fast charging speeds make up for it. The fact a 10-minute top-up or a 15-minute top-up, if you find a suitable charger, should just keep you going. And maybe that's the way you need to look at it. I don't know. I'd certainly welcome your thoughts on that one. But there we are. That was a bit of a range and efficiency test. And the answer is not very efficient, but still very happy with it. Absolutely. I mean, if you're gonna have to cover lots of miles, I can't think of many better places to do it. You've taken the best of a luxury Audi and you've replaced the drivetrain with something that's even better than what would otherwise be there. So absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.